All right, welcome back everyone to our February 9th deep dive into those current affairs that are going to make or break your UPSC exam prep. We're here to help you sift through all the noise and get to the heart of what you really need to know.
And as always, we've got a pretty diverse mix of topics lined up for you today, all things that a serious UPSC aspirant needs to have on their radar.
So let's jump right in. I was really struck by the news about India achieving 100 gigawatt of installed solar power capacity. That's a huge leap forward, especially when you consider that we were at a mere 2.82 gigawatt back in 2014.
Oh, it's a remarkable achievement, and it really puts India on a solid trajectory to meet its target of 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel energy by 2030. You know what's particularly interesting is the growth we're seeing in rooftop solar installations. It signals a shift towards more decentralized and accessible renewable energy solutions.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just about those big solar parks anymore. But with this rapid expansion of solar, can India keep up with the demand for solar panels? Are we manufacturing enough domestically, or are we still heavily reliant on imports?
That's the big question, and it's one that policymakers are grappling with. While India's domestic solar module manufacturing has ramped up in recent years, we still lag behind giants like China in terms of scale and efficiency, and that continued reliance on imports poses a risk, both in terms of cost fluctuations and potential supply chain vulnerabilities.
So a bit of a mixed bag. We're celebrating the milestones.
Mm.
But we also need to keep a close eye on the potential roadblocks ahead. Now, how about we turn our attention to another sector that's getting a lot of attention from the government: tourism. They're making a big push to develop 50 top tourist destinations. What's your take on this challenge mode initiative?
Well, it's definitely an ambitious plan, and it has the potential to really transform India's tourism landscape. But the success of this initiative hinges on addressing some long-standing challenges that have plagued the sector. Infrastructure development is a major hurdle. Many of these potential tourist hotspots lack basic infrastructure like roads, airports, even reliable internet access. Then there's the issue of seasonality. A lot of destinations experience a surge in visitors during peak seasons, which leads to overcrowding and strain on resources, while remaining practically deserted for the rest of the year.
So it's about creating a more sustainable and balanced approach to tourism, not just for the economy, but for the local communities as well. And of course, we can't talk about tourism without addressing the elephant in the room: safety, especially for solo travelers. Have you seen any concrete plans from the government on how they intend to tackle this?
It's another crucial aspect. While there have been some efforts to improve safety and security at popular tourist spots, we definitely need to see more concrete measures to ensure that visitors feel safe and protected. That includes everything from better policing to raising awareness among local communities about responsible tourism practices.
Absolutely. It feels like there's a real opportunity here to learn from successful tourism models in other countries that have managed to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability and visitor safety. Now let's shift gears to a topic that's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons: illegal migration. Your sources highlight the dangerous donkey routes that migrants are taking through Latin America to reach the U.S.
It's a disturbing trend, and it really underscores the desperation and the risks that people are willing to take for a shot at a better life. These routes are often controlled by ruthless human trafficking networks. The migrants are subjected to horrific conditions along the way. They face exploitation, violence, and even death. What's alarming is that many of them are lured by false promises of easy entry and lucrative jobs, only to find themselves trapped in a cycle of debt and exploitation upon arrival.
It's a stark reminder that the American dream can be a dangerous illusion for some. Now, before we move on to some other important news, I want to take a moment to remind all our listeners to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us reach more UPSC aspirants like you and provides valuable insights to aid in your preparation. All right, back to our discussion. The RBI's Monetary Policy Committee, or MPC as it's commonly known, recently announced a repo rate cut. Can you break down what this means for our listeners who might not be familiar with all the financial jargon?
Sure, the repo rate is essentially the interest rate at which commercial banks borrow money from the RBI. When the repo rate is cut, it usually leads to lower interest rates on loans, making it cheaper for individuals and businesses to borrow money. This can stimulate economic activity, but it also needs to be carefully managed to avoid excessive inflation.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between encouraging growth and keeping inflation under control.
Precisely.
Now, on a completely different note, let's talk about a group that often goes unnoticed despite playing such a vital role in our society: sanitation workers. Earlier, we touched upon the National Commission for Safai Karamcharis, NCSK, and its role in protecting their rights. But what are some of the specific challenges that these workers face on the ground?
Well, the reality for many sanitation workers is a harsh one, to say the least. They often work in hazardous conditions, exposed to all sorts of health risks without adequate safety measures. Think about the dangers involved in manual scavenging, a practice that's thankfully on the decline but still persists in some areas.
It's heartbreaking to think that those who keep our cities clean often pay such a heavy price for it. It really raises questions about social justice, inequality, and the need for more sustainable and ethical sanitation practices. What steps are being taken to improve their working conditions and ensure their safety?
There are several initiatives underway. One notable one is the National Action for Mechanized Sanitation Ecosystem, or NEMST scheme. This program aims to promote mechanized sanitation practices, reducing the reliance on manual scavenging and protecting workers from hazardous exposure.
That sounds like a step in the right direction. Now let's talk about something that's sure to pique the interest of our tech-savvy listeners: algorithmic trading. SEBI is proposing a regulatory framework for retail algorithmic trading. Can you demystify this concept for us?
Imagine having a computer program execute trades on your behalf
Hmm.
based on preset rules and conditions. That's essentially what algorithmic trading is all about. You make trading faster, more efficient, and potentially more profitable, but it also comes with its own set of risks.
Sounds pretty complex. What are some of the key concerns that SEBI is trying to address with this proposed framework?
Transparency is a major one. There's a need to ensure that these algorithms are designed in a way that doesn't manipulate the market or disadvantage retail investors. Another concern is risk management. SEBI wants to make sure that retail investors understand the risks involved and don't end up losing their savings because of some faulty algorithm.
So it's about finding that balance between fostering innovation in the financial markets
Yeah,
and protecting the interests of individual investors.
exactly.
Now let's take a quick detour to Northeast India. Earlier we mentioned the discovery of a new orchid species in Manipur, adding to the region's already incredible biodiversity. But there was also some concerning news about the Rhododendron wadi in Nagaland.
Yeah, unfortunately, this beautiful flowering plant is facing threats to its survival, primarily due to habitat loss and climate change. It's a reminder of the environmental challenges we face and the urgent need to prioritize conservation efforts.
It's a shame that something so beautiful is under threat. On a slightly lighter note, we also touched upon Swavalombini, that special women's entrepreneurship program focused on Assam, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. What stood out to you about this particular initiative?
I think it's the holistic approach. It's not just about skills training. Swavalombini offers dedicated mentorship and hand-holding support, which can be incredibly valuable for women navigating the challenges of starting and running a business.
So it's about empowerment, not just enablement.
Exactly.
Now shifting our focus to Assam once again. The Forest Advisory Committee has given the green light for research and development activities in Dibru-Saikhowa National Park. Can you tell us a bit more about this park and why this research is significant?
Dibru-Saikhowa is a biodiversity hotspot, home to a unique mix of flora and fauna, including endangered species like tigers and elephants. This research will provide valuable insights into this ecosystem, its vulnerabilities, and how to best protect it for the future.
It's great to see that research is being prioritized to ensure informed conservation efforts. Now, on a global health note, we learned that a second genotype of the bird flu virus has been detected among dairy cattle in the U.S. What are the implications of this discovery?
It's definitely a concerning development because it highlights the evolving nature of the bird flu virus and its potential to jump between different animal species. While bird flu outbreaks in poultry are not uncommon, the fact that it's now been found in cattle raises concerns about its potential to mutate and potentially pose a greater threat to human health.
A reminder that we need to stay vigilant about zoonotic diseases and strengthen those global surveillance and response mechanisms. Now, for a cultural interlude, let's talk about the world of Dashavatar theater performances, which have recently resumed in Maharashtra. What makes this art form so unique and captivating?
Well, Dashavatar theater is a true spectacle. It combines vibrant costumes, elaborate makeup, and incredibly expressive storytelling. It's a tradition that has been passed down through generations, keeping alive the rich mythology and cultural heritage of the region.
A testament to the power of art to transcend time and connect us to our roots. And finally, we end this segment with an update on that interesting legal development regarding the governor's power under Article 200 of the Constitution. Can you remind us what this is all about?
Sure, the Supreme Court is currently examining the question of whether a governor can reserve a bill for the president's consideration, after already withholding assent to it. This raises some crucial questions about the separation of powers between the state and central governments, and the governor's role within that delicate balance.
A complex legal issue with potential implications for the legislative process. And that wraps up part 1 of our February 9th deep dive, tailored specifically for your UPSC aspirations.
We've covered a lot of ground, but don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for your daily dose of insightful analysis.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into even more critical topics and leave you with some food for thought to ponder. Until then, happy studying.
And we're back for part 2 of our February 9th deep dive into current affairs, all curated for you, our dedicated UPSC aspirants.
That's right. And just a quick recap for anyone just tuning in, we've already tackled India's solar power success story, dissected those ambitious tourism plans, and even ventured into the murky world of illegal migration trends.
But don't go anywhere, because we've got more ground to cover.
Absolutely. We've still got some really critical issues to unpack.
Indeed. Let's zoom in on some topics that'll definitely be on the radar for your UPSC exams.
Okay, sounds good.
Remember, some of these might sound familiar from our past deep dives, but revisiting these key points can help you solidify that understanding.
Makes sense. Got to keep those concepts fresh.
Yeah.
Speaking of keeping things fresh, how about we tackle something that often trips up UPSC aspirants? The decisions made by the Monetary Policy Committee or the MPC?
Yes, the MPC.
We already explained what the repo rate is, but I'm curious, what kind of factors did the MPC consider when they decided to make that repo rate cut?
Well, the MPC looks at a whole bunch of economic indicators before they make those big decisions.
I see.
Inflation is a big one. If it's too high, they might raise the repo rate to kind of cool things down. But in this case, inflation has been pretty stable, so they had a bit of wiggle room to lower rates and encourage borrowing and investment.
So it's like they're trying to find a balance between keeping inflation in check and making sure the economy keeps growing, right?
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Now, shifting gears completely, let's talk about a group that often gets overlooked, despite their essential role, sanitation workers.
Absolutely. A crucial part of our society.
Earlier, we touched upon the National Commission for Safai Karamcharis, an NCSK, and what they're doing to protect the rights of sanitation workers.
Right.
But I'm curious, what are some of the biggest hurdles these workers face every day?
Well, the reality is many sanitation workers face incredibly harsh conditions.
That's awful.
They're often working in dangerous environments, exposed to serious health risks without proper safety measures.
I can only imagine.
Think about the dangers involved in manual scavenging, a practice that's thankfully declining, but sadly still exists in some places.
It's really disturbing to think that those who keep our cities clean are often putting their own health at risk. It makes you think about social justice, the inequalities that exist, and the need for better, more ethical solutions for sanitation. So what's being done to create safer working conditions for these essential workers?
Well, there are a few initiatives in place. One that stands out is the National Action for Mechanized Sanitation Ecosystem, the NAMSD scheme.
Okay.
It's focused on promoting mechanized sanitation methods, which helps reduce the reliance on manual scavenging and protects workers from those hazardous exposures.
That sounds like a positive step forward. Now let's dive into something a bit more techy, algorithmic trading.
Okay.
Sebi, they're proposing a whole new regulatory framework for retail algorithmic trading. Can you break that down for us? What exactly is it?
Well, picture this. You have a computer program making trades on your behalf based on a specific set of rules you've programmed in. That's essentially algorithmic trading in a nutshell.
Wow.
It can really speed things up, make trading more efficient, and potentially lead to bigger profits, but of course it's not without its risks.
I can imagine. It sounds pretty complicated. So what are some of the main issues that SEBI is trying to address with these proposed regulations?
Transparency is a big one. They want to make sure these algorithms are designed fairly, not manipulating the market or putting retail investors at a disadvantage.
Makes sense.
Another concern is risk management. They want to make sure individual investors understand the risks involved and don't end up losing their savings because of a poorly designed algorithm.
Yeah, that's crucial. So it's all about striking that balance, again, encouraging innovation in the financial world, but also making sure individual investors are protected.
Right.
Now, how about we take a quick trip to Northeast India? Earlier, we talked about that exciting discovery of a new orchid species in Manipur. It's a real testament to the incredible biodiversity in that region.
Absolutely stunning.
But we also touched on some concerning news about the Rhododendron wadi in Nagaland.
Yes, unfortunately, this beautiful flowering plant is facing some serious
That's
threats.
so sad.
Habitat loss and climate change, they're the main culprits.
Of course.
It's a real wake-up call about the environmental challenges we're facing and a reminder that we need to double down on those conservation efforts.
Absolutely. We have to protect these precious ecosystems. On a more positive note, we also talked about Swavellambini, that fantastic women's entrepreneurship program focused on Assam, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. What is it about that initiative that really stood out to you?
I think it's their holistic approach. It's not just about teaching skills, it's about going beyond that. Swavellambini offers one-on-one mentorship and continuous support.
That's amazing.
That kind of guidance can be so valuable for women who are starting their own businesses and facing those unique challenges that come with it.
So it's about empowering them with the tools and support they need to succeed. Now, back to Assam. The Forest Advisory Committee has given the go-ahead for research and development activities in Dibru-Sakhowat National Park. Can you tell us a bit more about this park and what makes this research so important?
Well, Dibru-Sakhowat is a biodiversity hotspot, home to a truly unique blend of plants and animals, including some very endangered species like tigers and elephants.
I see.
This research is going to give us a much deeper understanding of this ecosystem. We'll learn more about its vulnerabilities and how to best protect it for the future.
It's encouraging to see that research is being prioritized to ensure informed conservation efforts. Now, switching gears to global health, we talked about a second genotype of the bird flu virus detected in U.S. dairy cattle.
Yes, a concerning development for sure.
What does this discovery mean? Should we be worried?
Well, it definitely highlights how the bird flu virus is constantly evolving, and it raises concerns about its potential to jump between different animal species. Bird flu outbreaks in poultry aren't unusual, but finding it in cattle raises a red flag. It could mean the virus is mutating, which could pose a bigger threat to human health.
So we need to keep a close eye on that situation.
Absolutely, and we have to strengthen those global disease surveillance and response systems, just in case.
Agreed. Now, for something a little more lighthearted, let's talk about the revival of Dashavatar theater performances in Maharashtra. What makes this art form so special?
Oh, the Dashavatar theater is a visual feast. It combines those vibrant costumes and elaborate makeup with powerful storytelling.
Sounds amazing.
It's a tradition that has been passed down through generations, keeping those ancient myths and that rich cultural heritage alive.
It's amazing how art can bridge those gaps between generations and keep those traditions alive. Okay, and finally, we're circling back to that intriguing legal case about the governor's power under Article 200 of the Constitution.
Right.
Remind us what this case is all about.
Sure, the Supreme Court is looking into whether a governor can reserve a bill for the president's consideration even after they've already refused to give it their assent.
That's a tricky one.
It brings up some big questions about the division of power between the state and central governments and the governor's role in all of that.
Definitely a complex legal issue with potentially far-reaching consequences for lawmaking in India. Welcome back to our February 9th deep dive into current affairs, specifically tailored for our UPSC aspirants.
We're in the final stretch now, ready to tie up those loose ends and give you those final nuggets of wisdom for your exam prep.
Absolutely. Now, picking up where we left off, let's talk about that case before the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You know, the one examining the governor's power under Article 200 of the Constitution. Why is this case causing such a stir?
Well, it boils down to the whole idea of federalism, that balance of power between the states and the central government, and the governor, who's appointed by the president, is right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
This article, Article 200, it gives the governor the power to reserve a state-level bill for the president's consideration, basically giving the central government a voice in matters that might normally be under the state's control.
So it's like a potential clash between the state and the center.
Exactly. And in this particular case, the issue is that the governor refused to give assent to a bill, but then also decided to reserve it for the president to look at. It's like a double whammy. And the Supreme Court is trying to figure out if that's even allowed under the Constitution.
It's definitely a case to keep an eye on, for sure. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about India's agreement with Panama on those development projects. What's the bigger picture here, geopolitically speaking?
Well, it's a pretty strategic move by India to increase its influence in a region that's historically been under the sway of the United States. Panama, with that crucial canal connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, plays a big role in global trade.
Makes
Strengthening ties with Panama fits right into India's overall foreign policy goals, diversifying its partnerships and stepping up as a global player.
It's fascinating how these seemingly unrelated events all tie into those larger geopolitical trends. Okay, let's bring it back to a topic we've touched on a few times already, the situation of sanitation workers in India. We talked about the challenges they face, the programs aimed at improving their lives, but what else can be done to ensure their safety and dignity?
Well, it's a complex issue that needs a multi-pronged approach. We've got the mechanized sanitation and safety training, which are important, but we also need to tackle that deep-rooted social stigma that's attached to this profession.
Right.
Investing in their education, giving them opportunities for skills development that could open up new paths for them, different jobs, and help break that cycle of poverty that often forces them into this dangerous work.
It's about empowering them with choices, recognizing the value of their work, and creating a society where everyone is treated with respect. Now, for our listeners who are into the world of finance and tech, we discussed SEBI's proposal to regulate retail algorithmic trading. What could this mean for the everyday investor?
Well, if it's done right, this kind of regulation could level the playing field, giving regular investors access to those sophisticated trading tools that were previously only available to the big players.
Okay, yeah.
But, and this is a big but, it's crucial to make sure those tools are used responsibly and that everyone understands the risks involved. We don't want people making rash decisions and losing their hard-earned money.
It's about empowering investors with knowledge, making sure they're informed and can navigate this complex world. Now, before we wrap up, let's revisit that Swavalambini program, the one focused on women entrepreneurs in the Northeast. What makes this initiative different from others?
It's their holistic approach. They don't just stop at skills training. Swavalambini provides ongoing mentorship, that one-on-one support that can make a real difference for women who are facing those unique hurdles in setting up and growing a business.
It's about building a support system, a network that helps them succeed. Okay, last but not least, let's end on a positive note for our environment. The research happening in Dibru-Saikhowa National Park. It's a chance to learn more about this incredible ecosystem and find ways to protect it.
Exactly. The more we know about it, the better equipped we'll be to develop effective conservation strategies.
And there you have it, folks, our in-depth look at the key current events of February 9th, 2025, specifically curated for you, our dedicated UPSC aspirants.
We've covered a lot of ground, from complex legal battles to India's expanding global presence, and from the fight for social justice to the inspiring stories of resilience and innovation.
It's been quite the journey. But remember, just staying informed isn't enough. The real test lies in your ability to think critically, analyze information, connect the dots, and form your own well-rounded opinions. We hope these deep dives give you the tools and the confidence to ace those UPSC exams.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more insightful analysis and updates.
Keep learning, keep questioning, keep pushing forward, and we'll catch you in our next deep dive.